In this video, I have a fantastic panel. We're going to break down Disney's quarter. The numbers dropped today. We actually got a lot of announcements as well with streaming and things like that. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. I got Slimer, Mr. Seymour Duck, and the Italiano joining me today on this episode of OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. We're breaking down the Disney quarterly earnings call today. But before we dive into our festivities, I want to introduce my fantastic panel. Right over here, we got the one, the only George, the Italiano. George, thank you so much for coming on, sir. It's been a really, really long time since I've seen you. You've grown. You look fantastic.
Thank you so much. I think honestly the only thing that was like really growing is my beard. Like it grows second for second.
There you go. You're high tea, George. You're high tea. You know, you got that. Gotcha. But if you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And before you move on to the rest of the panel, I do have to say just one little thing. To all the naysayers that decided to wake up today thinking that Disney was going to fall flat on their face and crash and burn with this quarterly earnings, well, I just have one thing to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it didn't quite work out. Yeah, it turned out a little different. Mr. Seymour Duck, welcome back, sir. It's always fun.
Hello.
It's always fun having you on, sir. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Yes, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck. But I just want to say thank you for inviting me. You guys are great people, and you'll let me nerd out with numbers. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an honor having you on. We love having you on, and I love picking your brain in regards to the numbers and deep diving into stuff. So thank you so much, Mr. Duck. I appreciate you. And down below, we got Mr. Slimer in the house. Slimer, thank you for joining, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was a last-minute invitation, but I couldn't pass it up because it was my first time coming on with Mr. Seymour. So yes. I'm honored. Mr. Seymour, I've been watching you on here before I even came on. So it's a pleasure finally jumping on. He's my Ghostbuster / Curb Your Enthusiasm / It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia Twitter friend. Yep. So
there we go.
Anytime we see something funny within those categories, we always like to share it and get a good laugh. But as far as where you can find me, guys, you can find me on Orange Grove 55 with my amazing friends here. And you can also find me on Twitter at SlimeSquare84.
Perfect. All right, let's dive in. We have a lot to discuss today. We got a lot of announcements and a lot of numbers to kind of break down. So this is a chart. This is provided actually by App Economy Insights on Twitter. So Disney Q1 fiscal year 2024 revenue. It says revenue up 0% year over year, 23.5 billion. It was a 0.3 billion miss. And then it says here that the non-GAAP estimate of 1.22, that was a beat of 0.18. Now, Seymour, I'm going to start with you. Let's start with the entertainment side of the equation here. Well, then we'll go into parks in a little bit. What are your overall thoughts on the numbers for the entertainment media side of the quarter?
I think they were actually amazing. Last earnings call, Bob Iger, I was talking about how Bob Iger is showing progress, and now we're seeing that progress. So what you're seeing is that the profitability is going up with the cost cutting that he promised. You're seeing that with the direct-to-consumer for Hulu and Disney Plus. Last year it used to be $1 billion. It's just like over 100 million, and we're almost there to profitability. And I won't be surprised if next quarter or the quarter after, Disney Plus and Hulu is profitable.
That's interesting, and that's what was pretty. That's been the promise for a long time, right? Like, there's been a lot of talk about Disney Plus. It's not profitable yet. But the promise from Disney, since I think even Chapek was there, was 2024, and so this is tracking with what they were estimating. I mean, they're on the road to profitability, and like you were saying, Seymour, it might be the next quarter where we see that. So interesting stuff.
And when you even looking at the revenues, it's flat. And the reason why it's flat is because the linear networks, you can see that it's down 12% year over year. But with the direct to consumer, it's up 15% year over year. So those are good. Those are good news because we know linear is dying. It's been on a downtrend for many months.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then we got the news today, speaking of streaming and Disney Plus, that Taylor Swift, her Eras tour is actually going to be on it's exclusive to Disney Plus. And look, I'm not a Swiftie, but I mean, you can't deny the power of Taylor Swift. I mean, that was massive news. What are your thoughts on that, Seymour?
Yeah, she's gonna bring in a lot of subscribers. Because I remember even in Canada, the Prime Minister was begging for Taylor Swift to come in because it was going to boost Canada's economy just from Taylor Swift's concert. Now imagine that, but for Disney's streaming service. It's just all these subscribers who never even subscribed before. All the Swifties are going to sign up for Disney Plus just to see that concert over and over again. And I'm sure that their ad revenue is going to grow dramatically just because of that if they sign up for their ad tiers.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I remember like the narratives out there when that concert hit theaters, it did very well. And people were saying, like, all the pundits were saying, like, wow, this thing is like propping up theaters. Like, look how well it's doing, this Taylor Swift movie. It's like, this is a powerhouse. Now that is going to be on Disney Plus, and it's going to buoy Disney Plus like crazy. George, what are your thoughts on the numbers, on Taylor Swift, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I think it's a very good, strong start for the first quarterly earnings of 2024. As Seymour has said, we couldn't really expect anything too much with the linear networks. It's just going to be a downward trend because that's just the way of the land right now. The numbers that are starting to show for the Disney Plus is just, again, to Disney's prediction that moving forward into the 2024 year, that as each quarter goes by, the profitability is going to show more and more with Disney Plus. The Taylor Swift Eras Tour, honestly, great strategy by Disney. I mean, it was the number one concert movie that was ever produced. Taylor Swift right now is a hot ticket right now, and she has her own following. She has her own fans. So to have that whole set of denominators, so to speak, as new subscribers to the platform, that's going to mean huge, significant numbers for subscription wise, and then also it will be a profitability as the continuation of 2024 continues for Disney Plus within itself. But yeah, I mean, and then we got some surprises too with the films that are like on the horizon, like with a lot of the sequels to a lot of animated hits from Disney Animation and Pixar. And then I think the one the one that kind of caught us all by surprise was the Moana 2 drop,
right?
Along with the first teaser trailer of the year. And I think, I mean, again, Moana, I actually, in honor of the quarterly earnings, I have Moana playing in the background as we speak. That this film for throughout the whole 2023 was doing, as our good friend Kaylee said, banger numbers. So I feel like, it's in Disney's best interest that this was supposed to be a Disney Plus exclusive series, and they just kind of combined it all into one and said, you know what, let's just release it as a full-length animated feature.
It makes sense as a theatrical, because you get your theatrical money, and you're still going to get your Disney Plus boost as well, because once it gets out of theaters, it's going to eventually go onto the platform. So you get both. But whereas if it was just a series, you're only getting that Disney Plus boost. You know what I'm saying? So this is a very, very smart move. And Moana is a powerhouse. I mean, it is a massive franchise. It was like, I think it was like the number one, if I'm not mistaken, Seymour, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was like the number one streamed movie of last year for streaming.
Bob Iger said.
Right? I mean, it's wild. I mean, this is a massive IP, and this movie's going to do very, very well, you know? So that was fascinating. Also, another thing too, I saw a lot of critics out there saying like, well, you know, Taylor Swift is it's not a Disney IP, right? So it's like, you know, it's like they're depending on like side IP and what have you. My thing with that though is like when it comes to Disney and like television, whether it be Disney Channel or even ABC, these networks that Disney owns, they've historically have partnered and licensed out stuff, right? Like George, you and I love that show on Disney Channel, Under the Umbrella Tree. Exactly. That was not a Disney show. It was a Canadian production company. You know, so big. I think Bear in the Big Blue House, I think as well, was not a Disney property. So they've done this before, and even Bluey, the Mighty Bluey, is not a Disney show.
And they've done it with many musicians before too. Miley Cyrus, Elton John, the Beatles. Like, this is not new.
Yeah, 100%. And I think even like BTS is on Disney Plus right now. So exactly, it tracks for what they've been doing. And you're not going to get anyone bigger right now than Taylor Swift. I mean, she is like the it girl right now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I'm not a Swiftie. I'm really not. She's not my thing. But you cannot deny the power of Taylor Swift. Now, Slimer, I know you're a huge Taylor Swift fan. What are your thoughts on all this, brother?
You called me out on the internet, man. That's it. My career is over. You know, with regard to Taylor Swift, while I know they have made alliances with other pop performers and country performers before, I feel like this is probably more on brand than it has been in the last couple of years, which is a really smart move. To me, this quarterly earnings announcement or quarterly earnings, to me, it felt like a refocusing of the Disney brand. We saw a lot of expansion into familiar markets and new markets. There's been course corrections as well that they had this quarter. For example, the content sales licensing. So if you go back to that graph, you know, content sales licensing up it was down 30%. See, that's where they need to make an adjustment. But the refocusing back onto the Disney brand by linking up with Epic Games, the 1.5 billion share buyout, that caught everybody by surprise. But it was also kind of like that scenario where like you look at that announcement and say, how come Disney has been doing that all along? So in my opinion, I think they're playing catch up with in that sense. But retying it back into the Disney flywheel was a pretty smart move. I think that's going to pay off for them in the long run. But pretty good Q1. I mean, as far as announcements go, I'd say it's their strongest that they've had in quite some time.
And Bob Iger really needed this. I mean, we talked, I think it was the other day on a video saying like he needs to hit like a home run, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this is as close as it's going to get for a home run until Disney Plus goes away as an issue. They are projecting subscriber growth the next couple of quarters, in addition to the operational costs still going down. They're projecting to surpass the $7 billion quota that they've set for themselves. So, this is something that we've been saying here for, quite some time now, that 2025 is really going to be the turnaround for the company. But this is just the solidification of the rebound that they've needed for the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, Seymour, you're a big, you're a big Nintendo fan,
Yes.
Big video game fan. What is your take on this investment into Epic Games?
Before I get to that, I just want to mention the 38% year-over-year down for content sales licensing, because that's their movies, right?
Correct.
And what has happened is their cost cutting hasn't been in effect yet. These movies were already in effect like years in advance, even some during COVID. And last year also Avatar came out, so you had that competing itself. So I just wanted to say that's why we had that 38% down. Also, the strike didn't help as well. We didn't advertise a lot of the movies with the actors. on like on their networks television, talking about it. That wasn't there. So like the strike, Avatar last year with big numbers, and cost cutting hasn't been affected yet in this. The future movies there will be, but it hasn't been in here. That's why we're seeing a lot with the direct to consumer, because it's much easier to release than the movie tier. But that's why it's down 38% year over year.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate the context. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually.
But it should improve, as Bob Iger said. They're focusing on quality and cost cutting instead of quantity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, real quick before I move to Epic Games, I wanted to ask you, Seymour, because so did you listen to the call, Seymour, at all with Bob Iger?
Yes, a bit of it. Yes.
Okay, and I know George, you did, or Slimer, I'm not sure if you did, but did you notice a difference? Because I've been hearing that Iger sounded much more upbeat.
He was very upbeat.
Yes.
He was very light. I was just mentioning to these fellas before we started recording that it was like night and day. That I believe it was quarterly earnings 3 of 2023 is like, you can hear it in his voice. You could hear the almost the desperation in his voice of like trying to like get everything out from the rubble, so to speak. And it feels like as each quarterly earnings that comes by, he has a sense of comfort in his voice, that he knows that the track that the company is moving forward, each time it's getting better and better.
Yeah,
that's what I got out of it.
You're right. Yeah, no, he did. He sounded different. What do you think? Now, Slimer, did you listen to the call at all? Did you hear Bob Iger's demeanor in this call or no?
No, I can't. I have very limited phone access when I'm at work, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it, and I'll share my I'll share my thoughts for sure with you guys in the DMs. But I wouldn't be surprised considering the results. I mean, hey, for the most part, it's been good. I mean, a couple drops, but I mean, those things they were out of their control. So when Seymour pointed out content sales licensing, for example, that was out of their control. This year is going to be a lot better, provided that they keep their operational costs and entertainment down, which I think they will. I don't think they have an option with that regard, especially if Universal Studios can keep such a tight budget. There's no reason why Disney can't. So, yeah.
And I also will say that during his interview with CNBC, went really well. He handled the questions very well. He didn't really speak out of turn. That the interviewer was like possibly catching him on, and I feel like he answered all the questions right.
I didn't watch that CNBC because I've been really critical of him, and so has our buddy Hedge on Twitter. Like, I don't understand why he walks into the lion's den. You're going into the enemy territory basically with CNBC. It's owned by Comcast Universal. Was it fairly friendly? Like, it was pretty cordial. I mean, it wasn't like the gotcha kind of environment.
I don't think there were some questions that they kind of the woman was trying to maybe catch him on with Nelson Peltz.
Right.
But he stuck to his guns, and he said, I haven't spoken to Peltz in a long time, and we'll leave it at that. And that's and I quote Iger on that, because he just basically just like cut the question off, and it's like, okay, let's move on to the next one.
Right. And Seymour, Peltz, right? What are your thoughts?
Yes.
What does this do for his case?
For first with CNBC, it felt like they just kept praising Disney. It was really weird. Even after the interview, they just kept saying good news about Disney, good news about Disney, good news about Disney, but yet nothing like really negative. Bob Iger was hitting all the points with all the news that was coming out today with his earnings call. It was a very strange, because usually, like even with Hedge, you will see that sometimes we'll call them snakes at CNBC, and that they'll give them these questions and trap them. But this time, it didn't feel like that. One or two maybe, but it really felt like they didn't have any negative thing to say about Disney. Even with the Epic Games, the dividend, the buybacks, all of that, it was all good news.
That's fascinating.
I think they were impressed with the announcements. I think it was very strong. Moana, Epic Games, the fact that they're going to invest 70% of the $60 billion into expansion. That's a very confident statement. All they have to do is just follow through now. So what is there not to dislike? In addition to that, right? When Epic Games or when Epic Universe was announced, Disney trended on Twitter and Universal saw that. I mean, Universal looks at those trends, and so I think they've recognized that Disney is not it's not as weak as they thought it was. And I mean, I don't know if that translates into the CNBC interview, but I would like to think that some people within NBC, Comcast are looking at this data and saying, okay, like respect that Mouse House because they're not out of the they're not out of the game yet.
There were a lot of investors that were saying after that interview of how well it really went and how CNBC was sort of kind of like out of their character. But I mean that
Right.
in a good way because usually they are one that will jump at the chance at knocking Disney down for whatever reason. And I feel like, as I said in the interview, there were some questions that they were trying to see maybe, but due to the fact of Iger's answering to those questions and what he had brought to the table, it was nothing but positivity.
And I wonder too, because the new CFO, this was, I think, Hugh Johnston's first earnings call as CFO. He came from Pepsi. And Seymour and I have talked about this in a video a few months ago. I mean, it was that was a huge catch for Disney to bring him on board. It was massive, massive. But what's interesting about Hugh Johnston, though, he's actually on. And I don't know if he had to relinquish this because now he's at Disney. He might have had to because of some, conflict of interest or what have you. But he was actually on a board. I think it was the CFO board for CNBC, like recently. So I wonder if that has anything to do with the change of tone. This guy either he is still working for CNBC on that board or contributing to that, or he used to very recently and he's a friendly. So CNBC is sort of like a little more of a kid glove situation because, Hugh Johnston is a friend of the network. And again, I'm just speculating. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's worth mentioning that he is part of that, Now Seymour, so Disney's going to invest what was it, like I think it's like 1.5 billion into this Epic Games. What are your thoughts on that? So they're going pretty hard into this gaming.
I think it's a great idea. It's like if you're adding another tentpole of revenues for Disney and their flywheel. Like even Slimer was talking about it. Like this is going to generate a lot of money for Disney with Epic. Think of it like in between streaming and going to the theme parks. You want something more than just streaming, but then you can't afford to go to the theme parks. So what you do is you experience it in between, kind of like a metaverse, but that term should be thrown out. That's old now. We don't talk about that. Even Bob Chapek years ago was talking about how Disney's going to go into the quote unquote metaverse. And I think this was it. They had this planned out all along that you get to experience Disney rides, Disney attractions, right? All of this, but in a virtual world, so that now people that can't go to the theme parks can experience it virtually. I think this is great.
It's interesting. Now, did they talk? I was at work all day, so I was kind of in and out of the news. Did they mention Seymour anything about integrating some of these Epic games into like the platforms, like Disney Plus or anything like that? Did they talk about any of that?
It's almost like it's like Second Life almost. So it's like you're almost experiencing virtual parks. And so that you can do anything you want. You can experience rides, attractions, or even watch Disney Plus if you need to. Somebody I saw on X was talking about how we should get that guy from the movie Free Guy in there. And I was like, okay, because like that's the experience you're going to get. That movie, Free Guy, is exactly what you're going to feel like when you're going to have this Disney virtual experience. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be on Apple Vision Pro. You put on the headset, and then you're at Disney. You're all like, this is like a whole new experience of going to Disney parks, but virtually.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Slimer.
Hey, Seymour, do you know how many Disney fans this is projected to capture?
Unfortunately, they didn't say any of those numbers.
Okay.
They just released a trailer and saying they're excited to experience this new immersive storytelling.
Cool.
And they did mention a lot with the Epic Games that they're going to integrate a lot of for purchases for people to actually able to shop. Whether that's with the the Disney store that's formerly known as Shop Disney, or if it's actually linked to the parks itself, but digitally, and they send your items to your house or what have you. But those were like the three main components. It said gaming, play, and shopping.
Interesting.
Basically, microtransactions.
Yes.
I know people don't like that, but I mean, like, for Disney, I see this as a really positive thing. And now they own like 10% of Epic Games from this because they actually invested Epic Games before, because Unreal Engine is actually crucial to their future. So when they do movies for like Disney Animation or Pixar, they can use that. So it's not just this whole experience of this new virtual experience that they're going to get. You can also get all the other stuff that Epic Games gets, including their Unreal Engine.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I could be mistaken, but I thought that the Millennium Falcon ride at Galaxy's Edge was powered by that Unreal Engine. I could be wrong on that. I'll have to look into that. But that's interesting, man. That's really, really interesting. Yeah, I mean, and look, the stock, Seymour, we've been following the stock today. After hours, it really got a boost. I mean, it was up to like last time I checked, it was up to like $106 a share or something like that. I mean, it seemed like Wall Street really liked what they saw. But
yeah, it was an FU to Nelson Peltz, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And he kind of poo-pooed it. I don't know if you guys saw the statement from him. He's still going to continue, but it's like, I mean, this kind of took the wind out of his sails quite a bit. I mean, because what is he bringing to the table exactly? I think the only thing he suggested is that he wants to merge ESPN with Netflix or something, or have ESPN on Netflix.
As long as Disney continues to what they're doing and staying, on that rise, and that it doesn't plateau and what have you, I think like no matter what these investors and these other entities that are trying to kind of break through to the Masas, I really don't think it's really going to matter in the end. As long as Disney comes out on top and the numbers show, which obviously starting off the quarter, it's already showing.
Well, it's like I watch a content creator. He's not in the theme park space. He's more entertainment in Hollywood. His name is John Campea. John Campea is great. He's really, really fun.
Yeah, I watch him too. He's a Canadian.
Fellow Canadian, nice Canadian guy, right? He's fantastic. But he says, one of the things he always says is winning fixes everything. It does. I mean, winning fixes everything. And right now, Disney's winning. I mean, this quarter was good. So it's like it takes a lot of the wind out of the sails for some of these, like the Nelson Peltzes and what have you, So
the activists.
Yeah. I don't think that they're going to go with Nelson Peltz after this because you got your $3 billion buyback, you got your 50% increase in dividends, and now you got this $1.5 billion in Epic Games. What else do you want? Like, this is good improvements that Bob Iger's given to the shareholders.
So you don't think the 17th time to try to take over board seats is going to be the ticket? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's just, yeah, I don't think so, man. It's wild, and they, look, this is the thing, I think with Nelson Peltz, I think he got in at a time when like Disney was kind of limping along a few months ago, or not limping along, but kind of struggling. And I get it, but at this point in the game right now, you're seeing a lot of improvements across everything pretty much. And they're moving in the right direction. I just don't see the case to be made to justify him coming on board with Jay Rizzullo. I just don't see I don't see what he brings to the table. Look, honestly, I'm open to him. Like if he has some ideas that like are just, that could really improve the Walt Disney Company, I'm open to hearing that. I just haven't heard anything. I just feel like everything is centered around him getting a board seat, and he's really short on ideas, so, we'll see. Now the parks division, we'll move into a little bit into the parks now.
Just one more thing. Sure. I wanted to say. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the things that happened today was because of Value Act.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
For example, the $1.5 billion in Epic Games, they worked with a lot of video game companies. So they could have seen that coming, and like, you need to invest in video games. You need to broaden your horizon. You need to get that revenue, an extra revenue source, because linear is dying and you need to replace that. Streaming is not going to be the only one. And I think Value Act, because they worked with Microsoft, they worked with Nintendo, I think they pushed Disney to go into that direction. Because before, Disney wasn't that heavy in video games. And now they're going for it. They're going all out, essentially going into the metaverse. And I'm embracing it. I like it. But yeah, I think Value Act encouraged them to push into that direction.
That's a really good point because, you know, all of us grew up on Disney cartoons, which were all on linear. This really fills in the gap for what was that component of the flywheel prior to the internet. Not so much streaming. I don't think streaming really filled the gap the way that we all thought it would. Otherwise, I think that flywheel would be a lot heftier and be doing a lot better. We wouldn't see streaming having these ebbs and flows. But yeah, right, you're right. I think video games have what is supplanted the cartoons that have captured, the audience and captured all the children. And so, yeah, I think that's the right thing to go after if you're looking to update that component of your company and how to, maintain that market.
Well said. Well said. Now, Seymour, on Twitter and stuff, I have conversations with folks, and I talk to, people will ask like, well, like who do you support? And I always say Value Act because I've been reading up on them, and like you brought it to my attention about the how they helped Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
And look, Nintendo's like, and you're a huge Nintendo guy, and Nintendo's doing like really, really well right now. But if you want to elaborate a little bit for the audience, like kind of give them a little context in regards to who Value Act is and what they've done for Nintendo and why maybe they're good for Disney.
Oh, they're an activist investor, but unlike Pelt, they work in the background. They don't cry about it and say, "Hey, you need to get things done." They work with the CEO, they work with the board, but all in the background as you should. You don't want to see this out in the open. So that's probably what Bob Iger saw, the professionalism that Value Act has been doing behind the scenes. He's been saying that they've been working for them with them for years. And I'm sure they increased their stake in Disney. They don't have to disclose it if it's not over 5%. But I'm sure that they have increased their stake, and that's why they have this partnership. And funny enough, they're pushing Nintendo to become more like Disney, and now Disney's becoming more like Nintendo with the gaming side. Well, yeah, they've done great things. Nintendo is doing great things for Universal. All their parks that have Nintendo IPs are up. It's helping Nintendo's gaming. Everything's good for Nintendo and Universal because of that push. And I think this is going to be the same thing with Disney, pushing it more to video games. Even Bob Iger was saying that he was surprised to look at the data of how for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, how long they stay on the screens for playing Fortnite. That he was very surprised about it. And I'm sure it was Value Act that was pushing all that data, telling him, look, we need to do this.
And that's a great point. And I'm glad, because that's the thing. I don't think Value Act gets enough attention in our space. You know what I'm saying? Like not a lot of people talk about Value Act, but like what they've done with Nintendo, and like you said, they're probably the force behind this Epic Games. They know what they're doing. They absolutely know what they're doing. And Disney supports Value Act. They brought them in. Right? They unlike Blackwell and Peltz, they're actually working with Value Act, from what I understand. Correct, Seymour?
Yeah, exactly. They want to work with Bob Iger. They want to work with the board, and they want to ensure that everything that they currently have is going in the right direction. They don't want to destroy anything that's there already. You don't want to replace any of the board members. You don't want to replace the CEO. You want to work with them and ensure that everything is all there. Because if you do any dramatic change, shareholders are going to panic. They're going to sell. You don't want that. You want to ensure the shareholders that everything is fine and we're going in the right direction. We're going to focus on quality. We're going to focus on this new gaming experience. Cost cutting is all happening, and it's showing that. Last quarter, progress, and now that progress is being shown.
Yeah, well said, well said. And you're right. I see a lot of people talk about in front of the channel. We have a good buddy, Gator fan. I mean, he's not happy with Bob Iger, and I understand that. And he wants Iger to step down. But and I respectfully disagree with him. I'm like, even if you don't like Bob Iger right now, right? You don't approve of what he's doing. And it's okay to not approve, absolutely. But I think for Disney's sake right now, you just ousted Bob Chapek a little over a year ago. It's only been like a year and a few months. For Bob Iger to step down now, that would completely destabilize the Walt Disney Company. Like you're talking like you're replacing 2 CEOs within like a year and a half. I mean, that would be I mean, I get it. Like if you're not happy with like Disney right now, but I mean, the damage that would do if Iger were to like walk away right now or it would get fired or whatever would be immeasurable. I mean,
And that's what happened when Chapek actually stepped in. It was Iger abruptly left, put Chapek in the hot seat, and look what happened. Nothing was being prepared in the sense that, okay, it's like, I'm going to step down, you're going to take over, and what have you. So if history repeats that self again internally within the company, where again Iger abruptly leaves or gets let go or what have you, yeah, we'll just put someone in there to replace him. Well, the question is, who's it going to be? Second of all, are they going to do anything of what's now trying to be reset for the company, or is it going to be another detrimental way for the company?
Yeah, well, Wall Street would hate it because they don't like that kind of like, uncertainty, number one. But number two is that then you bring a new person in, and then now you're kind of like you're putting everything into question now again. You have the new CEO now coming in. Like they need to keep Iger right now and sort of like, right the ship, get things moving in the right direction. They already have a succession plan in place, right? They already have a succession plan in place. Let that process play out. I know people don't like Bob Iger. He's woke. He's this and that. I get it, but you have to let this process play out. I don't think Iger wants to stick around this time around. I don't think he wants to. I think he really wants to just kind of fix things and get out. He wants to get his legacy in order and be done with it, And I think that's kind of like the motor that like that's what he wants to do. So I think that you let that process play out. You get that new CEO, which I think I welcome a new CEO. I think we do need fresh eyes, but you just can't. You got to make sure that you're planning this stuff and mapping it out. We've had way too much, like you said, George. Like Bob Iger was like, he made a mistake. He really did. Right before the pandy, he said, "You know what? I'm out. Chapek, you take over." And I get it. Iger was still on board for a little while, but it was the way it was done. He really did sort of like rush it. He really bounced, I think, way too early because of the pandemic. So then Chapek came in, and Wall Street and Hollywood hated him. Then he got ousted, and now Iger's back. There was just so much instability there with the Walt Disney Company for like this last year and a half or 2 years. To insert more instability with removing Iger now would be the worst decision in the world. It would be the absolute worst decision in the world. So I think this, and look, and this actually buoys Bob Iger. Like what we're seeing these numbers today, it makes the case. He's righting the ship. You know what I'm saying? And it's not an easy job. It absolutely is not an easy job. So let's move on to parks, though. This is kind of fascinating. Seymour, what are your thoughts on the numbers for the park division? Good, bad, indifferent? How do you feel about it?
Well, when you look at the parks and the experiences, right, it's showing that it's up 8% year over year, meaning that people are spending more money at the parks than they did last year. That means that there's no brand withdrawal there. It means that people are spending more money at the parks, either by capacity, by more people, or just people in general spending more money. But it's showing that at Parks and Experience, they're spending more money. They're not spending money on the consumer products, but they're spending more money at the parks. So some could say that they're saving that money for those toys so they can go to the parks. But I'm seeing 8% over year, a 34% profit margin. I'm taking that. That's huge.
Yeah,
because,
yeah. No, they.
Oh,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, you look at the entertainment division, right? You can like say, okay, consumer, you look at streaming is taking some of the stuff from the movie theater, linear dying, but here, there's nothing really awful to say. Parks is the cash cow for Disney at a 34% margin, which is like almost like a tech company margin. Like that's impressive.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
1% year over year, even for those profit margins.
What are your thoughts on that, Slimer, on the parks division and how they're doing today?
No, that's great. And they're doing it while attendance is dropping as well. And this has been a pretty consistent trend now for a couple of years. Attendance hasn't gone up. I think the only park that's seen attendance go up is Disneyland, but Walt Disney World has seen consistent attendance drops. Since the pre-pandemic. So that's fantastic. I think it shows that they can generate more revenue with lower operating income. My question to you, Seymour, going back to the entertainment, particularly, and the video games. If I'm not mistaken, the video game industry is a bigger revenue generator than the movie industry, right? So,
yes, that's correct.
So why wouldn't they double down on the video game industry, considering that they don't have to worry about theatrical releases and the budgets for video games are a lot smaller, and they potentially have better margins and better returns on their investment?
That's exactly why I'm excited for this Epic Games collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
It's because when you look at Nintendo and their software margins are high. It's because they own the software, they produce it, but it costs less. So you pay, I don't know how much it costs in the United States, 'cause I'm from Canada, but $70 to $90 depending on where you're from. The video games, those are high margins. Where you go to the movie theater and you pay, I don't know what the price is anymore. I have $15 in the States. How much is the movie ticket?
That's roughly for an adult. You're paying about 15,
and then you have to spend all the rest of the money and the popcorn, the food, everything. But here, it's like, no, you pay that game and it's good and it lasts you for months. It's a good business. That's why Nintendo does really good with their financials. And I think Value Act, again, pushed them in that direction because it's a good business. People have been saying that Disney should buy EA, should buy another company. Even, what's his name? Tom... the potential CEOs for Disney.
Tom Staggs.
Yeah, he was even talking about how Iger should buy EA, but like they should venture into video games because it's a high margin business and low cost. So why not? And like I said, it would be one of the filling the gaps for when you lose linear, and when movie theaters are now going lower because of streaming, it will fill all that gap in, and I think it's great.
It's almost like it's a 21st century model, whereas movie theaters were 20th century. I mean, if they're only yielding, what is it, 40, 60% domestically, and then 20 to 50% internationally on movies, why even bother at that point? Cut your operational income, cut your investments in half, and double down on video games, which has proven to have year-over-year growth for the last 40 years. I mean, pretty much. I mean, don't quote me on that, but the growth has been on an upward trend pretty much since Atari 2600.
And the one thing that I like is that when you do renovation for theme parks, that takes forever. When you do renovations for let's say this virtual metaverse experience, that's not going to take that much money. It's not going to take that long. You can just delete it and put in a new one, simply like that. So I like I said before, it's like that middle gap from streaming and movie theaters to theme parks. You fill in that void that Disney needs, and I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I'm glad they didn't go with the EA. EA is a good damage brand right now. Fortnite doesn't have any of the toxic stigmas.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys that. I'm not much of a gamer. When I was a kid growing up in the '80s, I was a gamer. I mean, the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, I had all of them. The Game Boy, all of it. But once it hit like the PS2, I think I dipped out. How is in terms of gaming, right? People that are into gaming. I mean, how is Epic? I mean, they do Fortnite, right? That's their brand. But overall, are they a pretty solid brand in the gaming community? Seymour?
Oh yeah, definitely. Fortnite. Yeah, I even play Fortnite from time to time, even currently. And I've been trying to grind to get Peter Griffin skin, but man, it's taking forever. And it's making you want to spend the money. And I'm like, I don't like spending money except for stocks, but I don't like spending money. I'm on vacation right now and I don't like spending money. But it's tempting to spend that money just so I can get that golden suit Peter Griffin on there.
Say Poopy in front of the mirror 3 times, you'll get it for free.
the Peter Griffin skin is pretty great, though. It's like buff Peter, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like he's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think
fantastic.
Seth MacFarlane was making a joke that he couldn't do Fat Peter Griffin because it would have cost him too much money.
So good, man. It's so good. So good. So like to kind of come back to the parks a little bit, I want to discuss this. This is interesting, right? So I guess Disney announced that 70% of like, remember that $60 billion that they announced for like, I think it's like 60 billion over like, what was it, like 10 years, I believe, for the parks division.
Mm-hmm.
So the 60 billion investment into the park into Disney parks over the next decade will increase capacity at the Disney park. Now, supposedly, from what I'm hearing, and a lot of like news outlets were running with it just being increased capacity at the parks. So I initially thought it was just the theme parks, but I guess it does include the cruise lines as well.
Correct.
George, what we talked on the phone, so I know you have thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on this? Right, like okay, so they're investing in they're investing in the parks, but it is the cruise lines as well, and I believe the international parks are included in this.
Correct.
You good with this? Not good with this? In the middle with this? How you feeling, brother?
Okay, so to start off with Bob Iger's statement to the notion of that it's going to be 70% of the 60 billion, which is roughly about 42 billion. That's going to go into the expansion, so to speak, for guest flow, so to speak. The other 18 billion we're pretty much guessing is just going to be for like odds and ends, kind of fix up the parks, add some things, fix those light bulbs that everyone's having a hissy fit over. Touch up the paint, 18 billion, it'll cover it.
Right.
But the 42 billion, yeah, it's going to expand over the international parks, the cruise line, minus Tokyo Disney, because obviously OLC covers 100% of that resort. So that kind of saves Disney there. What I found interesting, first of all, that this is great news. I think honestly, 42 billion out of the 60, that's going to strictly go for expansion of the parks, of the cruise ships, or what have you, I think is great. A lot of people, are claiming, okay, well, over the 10-year span, how much can you really do? Well, if you kind of break it down, you can basically make 21 Galaxy's Edges with that amount. And if done well, if done right, you can get 2 to 3 attractions per land and what have you. So I mean, you span that through 10 years and multiple theme parks and what have you. I think honestly it's a great way to go. Now, some things that I'm not quite happy with, and it's to the notion of we still have not yet got anything specific. So as much as I love to hear the fact that okay, 70% of $60 billion is going to go for the expansion of the parks for guest flow and what have you, I want to hear specifics. It doesn't have to be 10 projects. At least give us like one. Give us an example. And actually, it was a caller that did the Q&A section that she even brought up the fifth gate for Walt Disney World. And Iger completely stayed away from it. He didn't deny nor accept the fact that it was happening. He just stayed away from the question.
And I don't know what to make of that. Either his silence says there's something going on, or it says there's nothing going on. I don't really know what to make of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like on the fence with it.
And he basically said, we have a whole roster of IPs, that we're bringing to the parks. He was very vague, and I just wanted something just to give us hope. And I think that's where I think the only thing really as part of the quarterly earnings go that lacked was just not enough information of like what really are they going to do with the parks. Yeah, we have $42 billion plus an additional 18 billion, but it's like, okay, you have it. What are you going to do with it?
Well, and that's the thing too. And a lot of people are assuming like, okay, 60 billion over 10 years, and they're evenly distributing this out. Like, so if you take the 60 billion, and you distribute it evenly between all these parks, you get this many per year, this many billion per year. And I think that's kind of like the wrong mindset, because Disney doesn't really behave that way. They never have. Disney tends to kind of like clump these investments in. a little bit. Like, so for example, DCA had a huge, for the 5 years between the fact that when they announced DCA 2.0 in 2007 to the time DCA 2.0 opened in 2012, Disney World really didn't get that. Like, it was they were mostly focused on the Disneyland Resort at that time. Disney World kind of went through a little bit of a slump in that. Not to say they didn't get anything, but it was a little bit drier of a period, right? So the bulk of the monies went to Disneyland Resort, and then they'll switch it over. Then once this resort gets their money, then maybe they'll wait a couple of years, and then this one will get the bulk of the money. That's typically, I've been following this stuff for a very long time. I say it so many times since like the late 90s. I was on the AOL news groups with dial-up, okay? And this is typically how Disney operates. They don't do evenly, each park, each resort, every year, over 10 years evenly. That's not how they operate. So when people figure that in, 60 billion evenly over 10 years, that's not how it's gonna play out. I can tell you that right now.
Really quick, and before you move on to the others, there is a couple more points I do want to mention. That I find it interesting that they incorporated the cruise line into it, because even Iger said, they're right in the middle of making 3 more ships, which is correct. They're in the middle of the Treasure, the Adventure that's going to go over to Singapore, and then the third of the Triton class that is basically the sister ship to the Treasure and the Wish. Okay. So those funds were already set aside for those 3 ships.
That's what I thought, right? Because Chapek got that one. What was it? Not the Treasure, the
Adventure.
The Adventure for like pennies on the dollar. Remember, that was an existing ship that he bought for like super cheap, and that was one of the best things Chapek ever did, to be honest. That was an amazing deal.
And all that was set in stone before the 60 billion. So the fact that they're incorporating the cruise line, I find very interesting. Does it mean that there's going to be more than just 3 that they're going to be producing?
Well, either it means there's going to be more than 3, or I'm kind of leaning more towards there'll be investment into the cruise line, but it's not going to be as much as fans think it is, because they've already kind of got the ball rolling with the 3 ships.
Right.
A lot of fans are worried, well, a lot of the 60 billion will go to the cruise line, but like you brought up, George.
Yeah.
I mean, like the 2 ships are already, like the Treasure is like
pretty much like on the verge of done. Yeah.
I think they're like working on the rooms now. Like the ship itself has been built.
Yeah.
And then the other one was built before it didn't even got their hands on it. You know what I'm saying? So if it's just going to be the 3 ships, you're really only building one more basically from scratch.
Basically, but that was still part of their spending before they made the announcement of the 60 billion, because those 3 ships were announced back when Chapek was chairman of the parks.
Man. Oh, it was back then? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? That's wild, man. That's wild. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the cruise line, unless, like you said, George, unless there's like another ship or 2 that we don't know about yet that they'll announce. Yeah. But if it's just going to be these 3, I don't think a big chunk of that 60 billion is going to go to that cruise line.
And then the other thing that I find slightly frustrating is that they still are incorporating this money into the international parks. And I know that the international parks are booming right now, but look at the bigger picture. Why are they booming right now? Hong Kong just got Arendelle. Shanghai just got Zootopia. Tokyo is about to get Fantasy Springs. There's enough investment right now with the international parks. I personally would put more investment into the domestic parks that are literally bleeding dry, that need something that they haven't gotten in God knows how long. I more so would kind of do like the odds and ends. If they wanted to have like the 18 billion that was going to be for the international parks, but the 42 for the expansion, I would have just leaned more towards the domestic parks of the Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World. But I wanted to also ask too, and Slimer or Seymour, if either one of you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when the woman asked the question about like, what are you going to end up doing specifically with the capital investment, I believe Iger had mentioned that starting in 2025 and moving forward, you will subsequently see something being added somewhere. And he said 2025. So I don't know how big that is or how small, or if that's like when an announcement is going to be. But I believe he said 2025
He did.
and moving
Starting in
forward.
2025, we'll
Right.
start to see. I can't imagine, because if it's something big, we would see the work being done.
Right.
So, but
What do you
what
think,
are your
Seymour?
yeah? What do you think, Seymour? What in terms of the parks and that starting in 2025 that Iger mentioned?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were calling Slimer Seymour again.
Oh no. What are your thoughts on that? Because Iger mentioned, and starting in 2025, we're going to start seeing that investment kind of the fruits of that are going to start to show. Like, what are your thoughts on like, are we going to see? Is it going to be starting with small stuff, or is this? I mean, like, where do you think we're at with that? I mean, because that's kind of soon. It's a year away.
I really don't know. In the park stuff, I am a little not. I don't really know much, is because I don't experience the parks as much as you guys. So everything George says, I agree. Yes, but I don't, because I'm in Canada. It's very expensive for me to go see the park, so I don't really see how things are being done. All I see is these numbers. But I mean, like, if we're seeing progress, if things getting done in there, I'm all for it.
100%. Slimer, where do you stand with that, brother?
Well, let me ask you this, Seymour. Do you see Disney implicating more? Or implicating? Do you see Disney utilizing more synergy with regard to movie releases and the timetable that they open up? The same intellectual property in a park. Do you think that that's something that they're going to utilize as a constant with their movie theme park releases?
That would actually be a smart way of doing it, but I don't know if they could actually pull it off. But like, if you have a movie release and then you have that attraction at the same time, yes, it worked wonders when you had at Universal the Mario movie and the theme parks at the same time. If Disney can do that as well, I think it would be perfect.
Nice. Yeah, we'll see, man. I mean, it's interesting. I think that like another a factor too is like with the parks, there might even be a little bit of like, and I think our friend 6 Miles mentioned this on Twitter, and I kind of agree with him on this. The talent pool right now is sort of like in the theme park industry is sort of being sucked away and working on Epic Universe, the building of Epic Universe. That might be part of the equation here with why Disney's sort of dragging their feet a little bit too, because they have to wait until that's a little further along so they can start bringing people on board. These companies do share a lot of talent, believe it or not. I mean, I know there's the fan wars on Twitter, but these creatives do go back and forth quite a bit. They really do. So that's an interesting part of this equation. I also think that with the parks, I think that maybe the reason why we haven't heard too much in detail for at least Florida is I think that Disney is sort of waiting a little bit to see how this whole DeSantis thing shakes out. It's a legal back and forth. We're going to report on it when there's a final decision, because it is a little back and forth. It's a tennis match. The federal case was knocked down. Now Disney's going to appeal, and it's a little back and forth. It's kind of pointless to even talk about it until it's done. So when it's done, we'll talk about it and where we stand and where we go from there. But that's kind of, I think, where Disney's at too. And I think, George, you brought that up, where it's like, they don't know what they're working with in Florida right now. Everything is such in limbo, where it's like, let's just see how this thing shakes out, and then from there we'll kind of move forward.
Well, and speaking of that, I'm going to channel my inner Josh tomorrow. I'm going to ask you guys a what if.
Okay.
Because of the unexpected announcement today with Moana 2, and with the numbers of how much that movie is crushing on Disney Plus, and that essentially was part of the original Dino Land USA concept along with Zootopia. Is there a possibility that Moana still might be on the table to take the part of Dino Land USA? And if so, could that potentially be the start of 2025? Because then you are then taking an IP that's coming off of a sequel.
Right.
2025 is also going to be the year of the live action Moana. And also to the fact that that land is basically going to get there's going to be construction, but it's basically you're taking land that's already existing. Could we potentially start to see that maybe Moana is still going to have a bigger presence in the parks as far as with the $60 billion?
Moana is a massive franchise. Like Seymour mentioned earlier on in the show, it was the #1 streamed movie of 2023. This thing is a powerhouse. I completely understand why they're going forward with Moana 2. I wouldn't dismiss that notion, George, in terms of more Moana in the parks. I think it's actually very possible. I think it's well over 50% chance. Look, go ahead, Seymour. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to say that there's one thing that would be crucial about is that you do not want to put all these new attractions in right when Epic Universe comes out. You would rather wait down the hype, because then all these new attractions that you made will be just diluted just from Epic Universe.
That's a great point.
We would probably want to see it soon, but if you're doing it in 2025 when that park just came out, I don't think it's business-wise not the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You let Universal have their moment in the sun. You let them sort of breathe a little bit, and then you when that starts to kind of when the demand for the new thing sort of wanes, then Disney can come in and do their big Moana thing or whatever. That's a great point. What do you think, Slimer? You're more of the like the Walt Disney World guy. You're like George. I mean, do you think that this Moana? Do you think they're going to double down on Moana over there in Florida?
I think possibly. I think they're going to look at the reaction online from this announcement and the reaction building up to the release of the movie. And I think a lot of where they're going to invest or where they're going to invest into what IP is going to be dictated by the response to this film. If this film hits $1.5 billion, you're probably going to see 2 Moana expansions. But I think he's also right. Like, you don't want to open up a Latte Larry's right next to Mocha Joe's.
Exactly.
Great. That's great. Did you come up with those names right now? That was good, dude. That was really good.
Yeah, you don't want to open it up too soon. You want to let the hype die down, the Nintendo Dark Universe hype die down. And, here's another thing to consider too, right? Like, they have Universal just announced Universal Great Britain. So are they going to? So last time we talked about the 60 billion, I don't think we had discussed I don't think Universal made the announcement about UK Great Britain yet. Now that thing's projected to be within a 2-hour drive of everywhere in the United Kingdom. So that's going to be the place to go. That is going to be the new theme park. Like, forget Alton Towers, forget it. Like, this is going to be the new hotspot. They might open up a new park in Disneyland Paris. I'm just saying that's a possibility. Because as it is right now, they want to keep all that all the tourist money that comes to Universal Studios Florida. They don't want to share that revenue with Walt Disney World. They want it all for themselves, because everybody that goes to Universal Studios in Florida right now shares that money with Disney World. So they're not getting all of it. By building a park in the United Kingdom, they get to keep all of it, unless they build something bigger and better over in Disneyland Paris, in which case now they're playing. They're essentially playing the same game that they're playing here in Florida. So, that's a potential. And if they build a new park in Disneyland Paris, as a response, I wouldn't say as a response, but to maintain market share or to continue to grow market share in Europe, I mean, they could be looking at new park revenue or a capex at that point, $10-15 billion. So I think the $60 billion. Yeah, I don't think the majority of it's going to go to OLC managed parks. I think Paris, though, is a big question mark for Walt Disney right now. And they're not going to make a decision until that place opens up, which I don't know. Seymour, you might know when the United Kingdom Park is going to go, when it's going to open. But I can see them divesting a lot of money, or not divesting, but I can see them investing a substantial amount of CapEx into the Disneyland Paris park just to maintain market share.
We mentioned that over the phone as well. I think.
Oh, you guys did?
Yeah, I think out of all the international parks that would get majority, I think, of the CapEx, I think Hong Kong and Shanghai already got their fair share right now. Right. But I think Disneyland Paris would need it more, especially with the Studios Park. Studios Park is just horrendous.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, you just had $1 billion. I think it was $1 billion. Zootopia over there in Shanghai. Mm-hmm. You had the Arendelle, which looks amazing, over there in Hong Kong. Like, I think that the Chinese parks are good. Like, I'm not saying like, for like a decade or anything like that, but I think you can do at least 5 or 6 years, kind of resting on what they currently got. You know what I'm saying? I think that it'll hold you over for at least 5 or 6, maybe 7 years. So I think the focus of this 60 billion. Look, I'm not saying I'm not saying you starve the Chinese parks, but the focus of the money though should be focused, I think, on Disneyland Resort, Florida. I agree with you, Slimer. I think that you could bulk up Paris. I mean, that's a great idea. The studio park is abysmal over there. They definitely need to work on that. So I think there's options there, but you can pull back a little bit on the Chinese parks. You don't need to go all in on those because they just got major expansions. But that's the frustrating thing when they do these numbers, when they announce these numbers. That's what's frustrating to me. Because you get the figure, right, 60 billion or whatever the number might be, and you even get the time frame, but you don't know how they're allocating that money, and that makes all the difference in the world. That makes all the difference. I don't know if it's enough or not enough because I don't know what you're building. You know what I'm saying?
Would you consider Disneyland Paris to be the weakest park out of all of them?
Well, they have 2 parks in Paris, right? So they have they have the Disneyland park, which is actually really solid. That's a really solid like castle park. They have an amazing new drone show there. It's an amazing park. Great, well designed, the whole thing. The problem park in Paris is the Walt Disney Studio Park. It's like their secondary park. That one was kind of built during the Michael Eisner era, kind of built on the cheap, and that's the one that if they were to invest into Paris, I think that's where the money would have to go. Is that one?
I agree. As far as which one's the weakest, I believe Hong Kong Disneyland has only been positive. What, like 1 year or 2 years?
Yeah. I think out of all of them, Hong Kong. I mean, one can argue, when Disneyland Paris was Euro Disney, it struggled on the struggle bus a lot. I mean, no one can deny that. But I think, like, in the most recent years, Hong Kong had a very difficult time trying to find its own identity.
Right. No, exactly.
For which they even they demolished the castle and they rebuilt back up, they have their own kind of castle now.
They built upon. They had a clone of Disneyland's castle, which bugged me so bad. Because look, we have the smallest castle, right? Because we got the first park. And then Michael Eisner, he built Hong Kong during Disneyland's 50th anniversary. So he decided to pay homage to Disneyland by copying our castle. I'm like, oh, look, we already have the smallest one. Can we at least have it unique? That always bothered me. And so they ended up recently, like the past few years, they ended up adding to that castle, and now it's bigger, it's taller, and it's different than the one we have out here in Anaheim, which I appreciate that because at least there's differences there now. So yeah, and it looks great. It really does, and it provides more opportunities for Hong Kong to have those big projection shows because now they have a bigger castle. They got more canvas to sort of work on.
Now, I wanted to ask you guys. Speaking of Disneyland Paris,
sure.
I know that they kind of canceled out the Galaxy's Edge portion of that, but at one point, wasn't the Disney Studios supposed to get Frozen, Marvel, and Star Wars as part of the expansion? Are they still doing the Frozen and the Marvel? Are they still I haven't heard anything on that.
No, from what I understand, the Star Wars stuff has been axed.
It's been axed, right?
But I think, and even the Frozen stuff, I haven't really heard anything. I mean, they got the Marvel stuff, they got the Avengers Campus. I haven't heard much though about anything beyond that.
I thought they're doubling down on Beauty and the Beast since it takes place in France. Are they not?
I haven't heard that.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
Let me shift gears a little bit. So Seymour, since 70% of the $60 billion theme park expansion is going to be on expansion, what does that do for Disney in terms of shifting their costs and shifting talent and shifting operational expenses and operational income? Is this just an adjustment based off of what they've learned the last couple of years with the downward trajectory of entertainment and the upward trajectory of the theme parks post-pandemic? What do you think that's going to do for the company long terms in terms of stability and just predictability year over year? What do you think that's going to do?
I think you need to keep investing into the theme parks because it's your biggest cash cow at the moment. And if that for some other reason goes down in terms of revenue, that's going to be a big shock to the shareholders for Disney. You don't want that to happen. I remember Microsoft having the same issue. They weren't innovating their Windows platform. They just kept making it the same thing over and over again. And because it was just cash cow. And BlackBerry too, they had their phones, and they didn't innovate. And Apple came in and destroyed them with a phone that was innovative. You don't want that to happen with the Disney parks, where everyone's like, okay, well, I don't want to go to Disney World anymore. I'll go to Epic Universe. They're more innovative. I can go to Super Nintendo World and go look at all those rides. I want to go to the Donkey Kong roller coaster and the mine carts. You don't If you don't invest in your like best assets for the company, then I don't think the consumers are going to come. You can't you can't just keep delaying it. You got to keep investing it. I think you put your money into your best assets. So like a lot of the things for movie theaters, trajectories are going down, but not for the parks. They've been going up, and you don't want that to go down anytime soon.
Yeah.
Do
Well
you
said.
think, Seymour, with Epic Games, although I do feel like it's a strong it's a strong medium right now for Disney to pursue with it. I think they're doing it right. But do you think that in time Disney can cannibalize themselves within the park industry, that if they do a lot of VR and a lot of gaming that's intertwining with the parks itself, that it can take away from the consumer to say, well, you know what? Instead of me actually physically going to these places, I could just have this in my very own home. I don't even have to leave my house.
Um,
Do you think that could hurt Disney in the long run for the parks
it,
division?
in the long run, no. In the short term, yes. It's like these streaming services hurting the movie theater business right now.
Mhm.
And linear, nobody is even subscribing anymore. They're just canceling. So I see the same thing. The short term, yes, you might see some, but I mean, most of the time, if you're a huge fan, you will go to the parks. Um, for me, for an example, right? I'm a fan of Disney, but I can't afford to go to Disney because I'm so far away. I got to get these plane tickets. I got to get these hotels. I got to take time off of work. It's not close to me. Um, I can spend money virtually instead. So it might, in the short term, hurt a bit of the attendance, but I haven't been to Disney World in a long time. If I go virtually, on this metaverse of with Epic Games, I'll be spending more money there. Like I said, when I was playing Fortnite, I'm already trying to not spend money on Peter Griffin. Imagine if I was doing that in a universe of Disney. That's going to be very hard for me to do.
Yeah.
and
Right.
Yeah.
and my Bob Iger sees that. They see that with the Gen Z. They see that with the Gen Alpha. They spend so much money on microtransactions that it's that in the long term that's going to overcome anything that you do with the theme park loss.
Well, not only
Right.
that, but here's the way that I'm thinking about it too, and I want to get your opinions on it, right? So, like when you're a kid, it's all about those microtransactions, the DLCs, the video games, the toys, right? But let's face it, toys really aren't anything that kids are buying these days.
Nope.
They've all shifted over to video games, and we know this because look at all the Disney toys, Star Wars toys that are just sitting on the shelves. Every store you go to, man, nobody's buying Star Wars toys at
And
all. Nobody gives a shit, right?
in the earnings, you see it go down.
Every year,
Yep.
right? Toys have been going down every year, princesses, right? So, if you get them as a customer for life on the brand when they're a kid, and you simulate going to the parks for them when they're children, what do you think they're going to do when they're adults, when they have expendable income to go actually do adult things? They're going to go to the parks that they used to experience as a kid with their favorite Disney characters. Then they're going to go meet the Disney characters in those parks. It's a brand for life strategy, which I think is pretty smart. I think that Disney, like I said, is getting into it a little late in the game, but Universal kind of is too. Let's not throw Universal a bone here just because they built the Nintendo Land first. They're not that far ahead, and for Disney to catch up, it wouldn't take that much. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a Fortnite component in one of the theme parks, or at least on an international level, to compete with Pokemon internationally and Nintendo.
That would be huge. Absolutely huge. Now, Seymour, I got to pick your brain up. We're gonna pivot a little bit here. So Elon Musk, he's been in the news a lot. People talking about how he might buy a big stake in Disney, right? He might buy a big stake in Disney and sort of, kind of throw his power around. What are your thoughts on that in terms of like the chances of this happening? Can he even do it? Like, where do you stand with that?
Chances are zero. It's zero. You don't know what you don't know, and a lot of these people don't know. They just assume, oh, he's the richest. Sorry, second richest man now. Yeah, the CEO of Louis Vuitton is the richest, but
That's crazy.
but yeah, he has a lot of his wealth stuck in the Tesla stock.
Right.
Delaware court ruling says that he's not going to get that $55 billion compensation package that he was promised.
Wow.
And a lot of investors are like, oh, I don't like this. Why aren't you giving Elon money? He already had a compensation package. This is just an additional 55 just for more money. That because he was already getting incentives for the company doing better. But this one was, oh, if the stock market price of Tesla was increased, then you would get incentive. But anyways, he lost 55 billion, and then he bought 40 billion on X, and on a margin loan, and he had to sell Tesla stock, and that $40 billion from Tesla stock came from that $55 billion money that now is being removed. So it's like if he sells any more not Disney stock, Tesla stock to buy Disney, the whole thing is going to collapse on itself because he's going to get a margin call from the bank saying you owe us money. So he has to sell more Tesla shares just to pay off Disney, the banks, and then all the shareholders are going to riot and get angry and then just sell on itself, and everyone's going to panic and it's going to crash. We don't want that. He can't do that. And people are saying on X that, oh, it's not too late to buy in for the shareholder meeting. You have 2 days. Not exactly. There's a T+2 rule. You have to buy the stock 2 business days before the record date. And some people are saying the record date's the 7th, it's the 5th. It's even on Disney's official website that it's the 5th. I don't know why the misinformation is happening, but it's on the 5th, and you need to buy it. Not on the 4th, not on the... you have to buy it on the 2nd.
Interesting.
Yeah, let me just see. 1 business day. No, actually, you have to buy it on the 3rd. You need 2 business days, and then you need to be on the record. So you needed to buy on February 1st. And this was before this rumor of Musk doing anything with pelts and all this. No, he's not going to buy Disney. He can't afford to buy Disney because everything's all tied up. The Tesla stock will collapse. No, this is just all speculation that nothing's going to happen.
Go ahead, brother.
No, brother. Go ahead, Summer.
Well, I was going to say, wouldn't Disney have to agree to the purchase too?
Not exactly. You can do a hostile takeover. That's how he bought Twitter.
Yeah, so he would just buy a majority.
Ironically, he wanted to buy Twitter, and then at the last minute, even though he signed the deal, he wanted to back out, realizing it was a bad deal. And
I remember that.
And then after the judge forced him to the court's about to agree with Twitter that you got to buy it. Like, okay, we'll buy it, and then change his opinion about Twitter that I'm going to advocate for free speech.
At a 75% devaluation of the company, has he already lost money on Twitter?
I think it's like worth $7 billion now, from what I'm.
So he's lost money. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he lost all the advertising. That's why he's really angry at Bob Iger.
Right.
Even though Apple is still not advertising on there.
Yeah. It's sour grapes for sure. So all the talk about him buying it, it's pretty much a 0%.
No, like I said, you don't know that you don't know, and he can't, just because he's the second richest man, his wealth is in stocks, and he lost 55 billion. He can't sell. He can't do anything. He really can't do much, and because he bought Twitter, everything's stalled for him, and the stock has been going down. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Disney, go woke, go broke," because their stock is down. Tesla stock's actually down further than Disney from their all-time highs.
I think they sold one car in Japan.
Pardon?
I can't remember what country it was, but they only had one vehicle sold.
Oh yeah, that was in South Korea.
South Korea, yeah. South Koreans don't buy.
Yeah, I think you tweeted that today. Did you see more? I think you tweeted that out. The South Korea.
Yeah, there was one vehicle, and yeah.
Oh, that was you that tweeted? Oh, okay.
And he's blaming macro environments. Interest rates are high, but I'm like, yes, but sales are down like over 20% in Germany, and they have 0% interest rates to buy these Tesla cars. There's no excuse, and the Tesla investors are panicking, trying to make a petition to bring back his 55 billion, move the company to Texas instead of Delaware, and it's like it's not going to work because Texas is going to tax you like around 0.75% on your income, and you don't want that on a company. That's a lot of money when you get all these billions. It's not a good idea. There's not really court cases in there if you need to fight with someone. It's not, I don't know. It's a mess for Tesla and Elon. He needs to focus on Tesla right now and X, not on Disney.
Yeah, well, I can't. I'm on X a lot. I am on X a lot, and I can't. I honestly, I think it's worse now than it was before. Like, I can't think of a single thing that's better now under his leadership than before. And I was bullish. I made a video about him taking over. Like, oh, this might be really good for Twitter. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't panned out. He hasn't done anything great. You know,
and to try to take over a company like Disney, he doesn't have the chops for it. I'm sorry. People are bitching and moaning and complaining about Iger, but they want this guy to take over and run it. I don't know what you're putting in your cereal, but it's a full bowl of Fruit Loops.
Well, you know what a lot of people also forget too is the only reason that SpaceX and Tesla got as big as it were is through government subsidies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Those companies were not 100% funded by Elon Musk. He received hundreds of millions of dollars for SpaceX and Tesla. And had it not been for the government subsidization, those companies wouldn't have gone as large, and he wouldn't have gone as rich as he did. That he's not going to receive that if he buys Disney. He's going to look at the shareholder. He's going to look at capital investors. He's going to look at the shareholders to invest, and then be like, "No, dude. Like, look what you did with X. Like, you are not good with tech companies. I know Disney's not a tech company, but a large majority of it is.
Right.
And he's not a creative. He's going to scare all the creators away. He attracts a certain kind of a person. That's engineers. Now Disney has engineers, but it's not the same engineer. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a non sequitur. You know what I mean?
Well, what do you think? What do you think this whole Disney thing is then with him? Like, do you think Seymour? Do you think it's like a distraction game because he knows like Tesla's having problems and X is obviously having problems? Is it like oh, look over here instead kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or what's going on with the Disney?
Disney right now is an easy target.
Yeah.
You know, because not to get political, but you know, a lot of people on the far right are, you know, hating Disney, and so he's going with the crowd. It's in an easy target, and right now his business is not doing that great. And there was a lot of rumors that he wants to sell the Cybertruck to a different type of audience, not, you know, the people on the left. Not really. They want to go more further to the right. Truck, you know, the pickup drivers. They want to. There's rumors of that, and that's why he's trying to cater to them on X. I don't know if that's true. But it's just the easy target right now for Disney to focus on them and blame them for everything you have done instead of focusing on the mistakes. You know, you got to take responsibility as a CEO of a company or an owner of a company. Take responsibility of your mistakes and ensure the shareholders that everything's going to be okay. But he's not doing that. He's blaming everyone.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
I mean, the Cybertruck is a perfect example of why he shouldn't be in charge of marketing. Like, you don't have to market SpaceX, right? Like, the thing markets itself. We're going to put people on Mars by 2030. There you go. That's the slogan. Tesla is kind of the same thing. Like, you don't have to brand it, you know? It's got the name Tesla, you know, associated with it. It's an electronic car. It's going to save you money. Buy one. Cybertruck. I own a truck. I'm not interested in the Cybertruck. And I can't name anybody that owns a truck that actually is. And the fact that he made a truck look like that means that he doesn't know his demographic. He doesn't know the audience that he actually invested R&D into this vehicle for. And now, because he doesn't know how to market it, you're going to tell me that he's going to be in charge of Disney, which is a multi-billion-dollar marketing behemoth, when he doesn't even know how to market a truck? That just doesn't fit, man. You're trying to put a round peg in a square hole.
I'm telling you, people are telling like how smart he is and what have you. I get it. He's a business guy.
Right.
But I mean, a lot of his decision makings, I'm sorry, he's not playing with a full set of bocce balls.
Well, no, he's not exactly. Well, and here's the thing: you bring up a great point, Slimer. You bring up a fantastic point. Like, I'm not a truck guy, right? But if I'm looking to design a truck and sell a truck to that demo, there's a level of like, if you're a pickup truck kind of person, there's a level of kind of ruggedness there. I think that, you know, that your demo has. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's weird to me that he went with like this like PS1 sort of like graphics looking car. Like, the cars in a PS1, like that very like, You know,
virtual fighter or
exactly like virtual fighter,
very like symmetrical, like
exactly, like it's very sharp. Like you pick that design for this demo. Like the demo is like these are the people who get these trucks are like people that would like they're the like blue collar, typically, and like they do a lot of like outdoorsy stuff. And you design your truck like this. This is like okay. I mean, I can see why people that are like into the pickup truck thing is like, what the hell is this thing? Like, why would I want this thing? This truck is like so LA, right? It's like it's not. No, I'm good. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see this whole thing kind of pan out. Now I want to bring up this is fascinating. So Elon's like full blown on this whole like anti-Disney thing, right? He's gone all in on it. I guess he tweeted this out yesterday. An anonymous source, which we'll get to that. Seymour. This is great. An anonymous source just sent me this from Disney. It is mandatory institutional racism and sexism. Seymour, you want to kind of dive into this a little bit? Like, what are we looking at here, man?
Sorry about that. I just heard the smoke alarm beeping and I had to change the battery.
Oh, yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, so we got this Elon Musk tweet yesterday from an anonymous source, saying that, look, these are the Disney inclusion standards. What are your thoughts on this, man?
This wasn't an anonymous source. This was the Hollywood Reporter, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody edited this. This was actually ABC, not Disney General Entertainment Content. And this was back when Bob Chapek was in charge in 2020. I don't understand it. I don't understand how this happened. This anonymous source. It was like a gotcha moment. Somebody sent it to him and pretended it was new.
Yeah. It seems like someone sent it to him, pretended it was new, and he was like, I guess he's had an emotional moment. He's upset or whatever it is. He's on Twitter. And he's like, I'm going to post it.
Yeah.
He clearly didn't like vet this thing at all. Because like you said, it was an ABC thing. It's not a Disney thing. He
tends to do that. He doesn't vet things. He's like, he comments on a lot of the posts and just assumes it's real, but doesn't say it's real. So he'll be like, interesting. Or give an emoji. But like, he didn't vet this at all. This was out in the open in 2020. People could see this. And now people are like reacting to it, even though Tesla themselves has these standards.
Yeah. Oh, let's bring up your tweet. Let's bring up your tweet. Seymour's got the receipts, and that's what I'm saying right here. Seymour Duck, an anonymous source, to send this to me from Tesla, which I love that line, Seymour. That was fantastic. Actually, it was just from your website. And he's doing the same thing that he's accusing Disney of with all the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and all that stuff. The quotas and all that stuff, and you're seeing it right here. So yeah, he's got the same quotas and the same diversity, equity, inclusion teams that Disney has, basically, right? And you can see here from Seymour's tweets, the website, Tesla's website. I mean, it's all the same stuff that Disney does. The commitment to diversity and equity and inclusion. The principles. This is all the same stuff. Look, I live in California. Okay, California, blue state. California. And I'm telling you, my job does the same stuff. Okay. It's very normal out here in California. But it's just funny to me that, that Elon gets up there with this gotcha moment. Oh, the Mouse House. They're so woke. They have these inclusion groups and whatever. And look at them. Gotcha. And it's like, well, Elon, you go look at Seymour went right on your website and was able to pull this up. You're doing all the same stuff.
Yeah. And some people were telling me, well, that was old Tesla. But that post from Disney was 2020 as well with Bob Chapek.
Right. Exactly. We're talking
Bob Iger now, and you can tell Bob Iger is trying to go in a different direction and not put any culture wars into it. But a lot of the stuff that he's been trying to do was trying to fix the mistakes that Bob Chapek has done. And you like last earnings call or the earnings call before that, you can tell that he was frustrated about it and that he didn't want to talk about it. But like that was 2020, and this is like same thing. This is I think 2022. Like it's even if it's old, it was still there. So it's like what you Tesla can do it, but not Disney because they're Disney.
Well, that's where it gets very tribal, I think, right? And I'm gonna dive in a little political right now, but I mean, I feel like it's a little bit like, as long as it's like my side, then it's like okay. right? Like, so if I have on one side of the political spectrum, and like say I'm a conservative, right? And Elon Musk is doing this. It's Elon. He's on my team. We'll forgive him. It's fine. You know what I'm saying? It's like the Universal Disney thing, right? It's like the anti-Disney people will apologize for Universal all over the place. No matter what Universal does, it's all good, right? Same idea here. It's like, oh, it's Elon, it's Tesla. He's on my side, so we'll justify it. I guarantee you, if Disney did this exact same thing, and they have, and but I mean, you could just if they just took the Tesla logo off and put the Disney logo on here, the same people that are apologizing or even justifying this would be up in arms over it because it's Disney, it's Iger. We don't like that guy, but for some reason, Elon and Tesla can get away with it. And these folks are like, yeah, it's all good. There's some sort of mental gymnastics that are in play here that like justify Elon doing it. And for some reason, when Disney does it, it's woke and anti-American or whatever. But what are your thoughts on this, George? What are your feelings, brother? Sorry for leading you into such a hotly chart. Like I'm like throwing George under the bus, dude. I'm like, yeah, man. I go full political. Hey, George, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, that's just the way.
Go ahead.
And just to think his day started out so good.
I knew I stuck my middle finger out for something. I couldn't remember why. But, okay. Yeah. No. Exactly. It's just. It's all based off of one's own perspective of how they see things, and whether you're the far right, you're the far left, you're in between. It's whatever is geared towards the audience spectrum, so to speak. That's what you're going to back up, Right. So it's like when you have the far right, yeah, they'll have every excuse in the book for Elon Musk, because it's like, oh, he's on our side, he's on our team, he knows, with the strict conservative side of, with the Disney go woke or go broke sort of aspect of it, and it goes both ways too. You have the far left, where it's like, you get so up in arms with everything, and it's like, oh, well, this offends me, and this is offend me. Oh, but I don't like to be called this, but you could call me that, and it's like, the only thing that you could call me is like, don't be late for dinner. It's like, I don't really care, but, but it's just like that. That's just the way, and it's unfortunate that Disney is caught in the crossfires with that, and I think, as you all had mentioned it before, it's just. Disney is the easy target now, and it's like Elon Musk is in a vulnerable state right now with his own companies, and he knows that, and he's has too big of a chip on his shoulder to admit the fact. So what does he do? He goes after a company that's already in the social media realm of like, oh, okay, well, if something's wrong, it's Disney's fault, so I might as well jump on that bandwagon, but unfortunately, I think a lot of people are starting to see through that, despite of what you see, how you see the company, whether you think it's going good or bad. I personally feel like the Walt Disney Company is on an uptrend right now. I think like no matter what these third-party companies or these activists are saying, I think honestly Disney is just going to pull through just like how they've done many decades ago.
Yeah, they'll be fine. Absolutely. This narrative on like the internet where it's like Disney's like on the brink is nonsense. I think it's absolute nonsense.
No, but yeah, I don't believe that at all. I think Disney will be fine. All these companies, like the major companies we know now, they all had their worst part in history. Apple had their issues. Microsoft had their issues. Nintendo had their issues, and look at them. They're all now. Everyone's talking about them.
Yeah,
Disney's the same place right now, so it's going to bounce back, and everyone's going to forget about it in 2 years. Samsung had their exploding phones, but do you hear that anymore? No, I have a Samsung phone now, so.
Right, exactly. Dude, I totally forgot about. No, you're right. I totally forgot about that. But 2 or 3 years ago, Samsung had the exploding phone thing. It was like the talk of the town, right?
Yeah. You couldn't even go to the airports. Like if you have a phone, we have to bag it and put it in a locker.
That's crazy. It's crazy. What are your thoughts on that, Slimer? This whole thing, the the DEI stuff and Disney collapsing and all that.
Really quick before Slimer, before you, I have to say a comment about those exploding phones. I think back in the time that if you were to have that phone in your back pocket, you could always just have the argument of saying, sorry, it was just too much Del Taco.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You come up with that on the fry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I think the phone might be a little safer than the Del Taco, to be honest with you.
You're probably right. Oh man. What's my DI stuff? Elon Musk, all these. Here's what I will say. I appreciate Seymour Duck because Seymour Duck filters through all the BS and he just looks at the numbers because numbers don't lie. And all these people really do. Like everything that we're talking about now, this is all algorithm headline stuff, right? This is all attention grabbing, clicky baity things that everybody gets on their feed because it's what everybody else is looking at, and so this is shaping the opinion of the social zeitgeist, and nobody's really forming their own opinions. But if you look at the numbers behind the words, those tell you the truth for the most part. But no, I mean, I really don't give a shit. I mean, every company has DEI quotas they have to hit. I think this is a temporary thing. Once DEIs no longer serve the interests of the investors, I think that you're going to see them just kind of go away. Or they'll just be, I mean, because let's face it, the people that write these things, in my opinion, are just overglorified human resources officers. Yeah, that's just my opinion. You know what I mean? Like you can only go so far without having a substantial meritocracy. Like if you don't make decisions or if you don't hire people based off of their intrinsic qualities as it serves a position that they are hired for, then you're going to have less than desired performance. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to be judged by your performance, man. Money talks, bullshit walks. So,
yes, absolutely.
So. That's kind of my 2 cents on that. But hey, Seymour, let me ask you. I don't know if anybody's asked you this, but maybe I missed it. Sorry if I have. But do you plan on making a trip down to Epic Universe when it opens?
Possibly.
Okay. Who are we kidding? You're going to be the first one through the turnstile.
I have an issue where I don't like spending money. So it's like I want to go, but I don't want to spend money. And it's like if I spent that money, I could have put it in more Nintendo stock instead of the actual park to see Nintendo. I want Nintendo to pay me, not pay Nintendo, right?
Okay, Seymour, then to that same argument, if the long rumors are true that Pokemon comes to the studios.
Oh.
If there's Pokemon and Zelda, then I'm definitely going to go.
Sweet.
Because right now, the Mario parks are tempting, but it's just Mario, right? I like the whole branch of IPs that Nintendo has. Including the spinoff of Pokemon Company. But yeah, I like them all. So if you that's why I'm always excited, like, I'm going to save my money, go to Japan and go to their parks because it has all the IPs I want. But if they bring it to Epic Universe, then yes. Because the other IPs, I'm not really that into it. I know fans are. So I'm really biased. So I'm like, okay, How to Train a Dragon, Harry Potter, Dark Universe. Yes, I like that. Looks pretty interesting. But I would go only for Nintendo, right? So I would only stay in that one spot at the hotel. I wouldn't even bother going to the other side of the parks, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, brother.
Right. Oh, I was just going to say, so if I was going to spend my money, if you bring in Zelda and Pokemon, I'm definitely going to go. I'm going to bring a friend and go. Yeah. I'm probably going to pay my friend to go too, because most likely it's too expensive for them too.
Well, if you go, like, and I'm being 100% serious right now, let us know. Maybe we can meet you down there and hang out. It'd be kind of fun, dude. So yeah, let us know. It'd be kind of cool if we can all do like a little OG55 crew meetup down there at Epic or something,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then all the uni normies will be looking like, what are they doing here?
I know. Well, hey, I mean, we had Universal Orlando, the official account, in our live chat this morning. That was
dope.
That was crazy. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. They try to smooze me so I don't talk.
I should have wrote back to them and saying I'm still waiting for my gift card.
Exactly. No, but I do want to say one thing though, and like Slimer, you were talking about Seymour and the numbers and everything, and I do want to say, Seymour, that we all really do appreciate you, because what I appreciate and respect about you, Seymour, is that like when you are about the numbers, right? And it's like, you like Disney, you like Nintendo, but if the numbers go wherever the numbers go is what you're going to report on. So if it makes Disney look bad, it makes Disney look bad. But you just want to get to the accurate numbers, and I appreciate and respect that. I just want to say that.
Thank you. Sometimes I get called out that's like, oh, but Disney's still doing bad. I'm like, yes, but you're representing a worse number than it actually happening.
And the other thing I have to add to that too is you hold your own very well. You on social media, you don't take the BS from anybody, and you do it with such high respect, and by doing that it shows really your true character of who you are. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You know what, just for Seymour, I got a special little something here. There we go. You know, we gotta do the Mario coin for Seymour. There we go. We'll do two.
Meanwhile, I'm over on Twitter making Ghostbuster posts.
Hey, I'm a fan of Ghostbusters, so that's a strong IP from Sony. So I'm taking it. Yeah.
You know what? Well, I was gonna say, if we do that Story Geeks Ghostbusters, we got to get Seymour on there. He's a Ghostbuster fan. It'd be fun.
Hell yeah! Awesome. Yeah, let's do it.
But go ahead, Slimer. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Oh, I was gonna ask him. Do you think it's gonna do well? Do you think it's gonna perform better than Afterlife?
Yes, because they're bringing the older cast back instead of just having it for people who haven't seen the movie. Spoilers. They bring, at the end they brought the cast back, but that was just at the end, right. Or you saw a little bit of Bill Murray, but near the middle, beginning of the movie, if I remember. But yeah, the older cast, it's like merging the two movies together, and I think that nostalgia, it's gonna bring it a bigger box office number.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think they need something as a backup just in case Tom Holland goes away as Spider-Man, because that Madam Web is not projecting to do well at all, and Sony doesn't have anything else to fall back on. I mean, Venom flopped. Not Venom. What is it? Morbius flopped. I know they have another Venom in the works, but without Spider-Man, they have nothing. I mean, they have Ghostbusters, and that's it's a 40-year-old property, sure, but like it's a sure shoe. And if this thing works and hits 500 million, like that's, they've hit their 2.5 multiplier. So yeah, there we go.
It's a great IP, dude. It's a great IP. And yeah, I think it'll do well, though. I do.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Sony also helps HBO with The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a strong hit for them.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That was a really big hit. Wasn't it the highest watched horror / thriller in 2023?
I think so. It did really good. It won several awards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The best video game adaptation for it. Yeah, they won a lot of primetime awards too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nice, cool. Nice. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, a pleasure as always talking shop with you guys. Really interesting stuff here. Look, Disney is moving in the right direction. Not a perfect quarter by any means, but it was very positive news. I think the market agrees with that assessment. I mean, the after hours, Disney was doing very well. We'll see how it does tomorrow, stock wise, but a lot of good news overall. I do think that they made, I think they it took a little air out of Nelson Peltz's sales a little bit today, so, but hey, it's not over till it's over. You never know, 2 weeks from now, maybe Peltz gets a little bit, momentum, and we'll see. We just don't know. But as of today, it seems like they're on pretty good standing. But Mr. Italiano, I will start with you, sir. If you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There you go. And Slimer down below. Slimer, thank you so much for coming on, brother. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me back on with the awesome fellas. Mr. Seymour Duck, if you ever decide to come down to Epic Universe, we will hang out with you. I can't promise that we won't be weird, but we will definitely be embarrassing. You can find me...
Perfect.
You can find me on X at SlimeSquare84. You can find me right here on Orange Grove 55.
There we go. There we go. Slimer. Oh, you know what? We got to do a Slimer drop, man. It's Slimer. We got to do it.
And all these dollars got commas that come with commas behind them. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming.
There we go. There we go. It had to be done, Slimer. It had to be done. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Seymour Duck. Mr. Seymour Duck, thank you so much for coming on and talking quarterly earnings and all that good stuff with us. It's always a pleasure, sir. Yeah, absolutely. If you could remind everybody where they could find you on social media.
Yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck. And technically, you can find me on YouTube with some weird remixes for AI music. But if you ever want to look into that for some reason, but mainly I'm on X.
Now, did you want to send me that? I can link it in the I can link it in the description.
There's a lot of Michael Jackson songs, AI, Goku and Vegeta. It's very weird. I have Michael Jackson singing Pokemon theme song.
What?
And the gummy bears. Yeah.
Dude, you piqued my interest. You might have to send me that.
We got to record a whole other show now.
I know. I know.
Oh yeah,
That's
he's
wild.
also singing Into the Unknown. Yeah.
That's wild. So it's an AI. So you run this stuff through like an AI, and it comes out like in video form, like where you have all these.
But just
like
the music.
Oh, just the music.
Yeah, so it's just him singing those songs. I think I have other artists. I don't remember. I stopped doing it because I don't want to. There's legal issues now, but I was just doing it for fun because it was. I was like, I want to test this out. But apparently, I have some musics on there if you want to listen to some weird ones. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you don't mind sharing it, I mean, you send it to me in the DM. I'll put it in the description. That's fun, dude. That's a lot of fun. Really, really cool. Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining today, Talking Shop. Everybody at home, thank you for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today. Your thoughts on the quarterly earnings, studio, streaming, parks, Elon Musk. We would love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody. Oh, here we go.
세상이 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해. 개틀 것 같았어.